Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben, that's Josh, and a friendly face down there, down below us actually in the video. But Joe is back with us. We're so happy to have him back. He's our draft expert. My brother is shouting at the screen right now, saying, "I am." I'm like, "No, you're not, Jared. You are our soccer expert. That's what you do." But no, Joe is back with us. It's always exciting to have him on. He is way smarter than Josh and I ever will be in our mock drafts and in draft coverage. Even though I claim to be amazing at doing mock drafts, I'm not. But hope everyone's having a great week. I know I had a crazy week with elections here in Hungary. I mean, the fact that it was Americans asking me about the Hungarian elections, it's just absolutely crazy to me. I know Josh has been probably busy with work, but Joe, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Doing great. We got the draft coming up in a little over a week, which means it's crunch time for me getting everything done. But it's always a fun time when you're doing something like writing player profiles or doing mock drafts. It's a good time.
Love it. Love it. Josh, how are we
Yeah,
doing?
doing good, man. We got some nice weather just finally coming into Ohio. I got my grass mowed yesterday, so that was exciting to finish that. And I'm glad to have Joe on here too. We've done this several years in a row now. For you
Yeah.
guys that don't know, my man Joe DiTullio over here from the Game House. We go back from college days, writing up some articles together, editing things. And Joe actually has tends to have one of the more accurate mock drafts. I know he gets recognition on social media for that. A couple years ago was about 25%, if I remember right. Do you remember how you did last year, Joe?
I don't want to top of my head. I think it was around the same number, maybe a little one less, maybe two less, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Peter Schrager said before that getting even 20% accurate on mocks is like really hard to do. And I agree. I mean, we try to do it over here and
I'm like
we're happy
2%.
if we get three or four of the picks right. So yeah, I'm glad to have Joe on here. We'll ask him all the difficult questions, I guess, on maybe directions that some teams might go that literally need help everywhere. Maybe on how he sees some of the deeper positions in this class, and then
Yeah.
questions on maybe some individual players where they might go if there's
Yeah.
anyone that we could see rising or falling. And I'll just kick it off with the team with the first overall pick, Joe, the Las Vegas Raiders. Uh,
Ooh.
Before we even knew that the Raiders were going to be the team with this pick, it's been pretty consensus that Fernando Mendoza was going to be number one overall. Uh, and just from watching him, in my personal opinion, I think he's a good college quarterback. I don't know if he's necessarily worthy of being number one, but we do know that the Raiders needed a quarterback until news came out that Kirk Cousins is coming to Vegas now,
Hmm.
and I don't know if that means that it's less likely that Fernando's going to go first overall or what. So I guess just the quarterback situation with Vegas. Do you think that that's going to change anything, or do you think Fernando's still going to be going number one overall?
I still think he is. You're right. I think this class is, I mean, kind of a lot like last year with Cam Ward. It's like it's a first
Yeah.
overall pick. Or should they
Yeah.
be the number one overall pick? Like, not if we're going based on just overall talent of these players, but teams are so QB needy that he's going to go number one. I do think he's, a lot of people are saying he's the best player in the class. I think that's kind of ridiculous to be honest, but I do think that he's a solid quarterback. He can go number one. And with Las Vegas, even getting Kirk Cousins, for me, I think they seemingly have told Kirk Cousins he's going to have to be with Fernando Mendoza. Like, hey, you're going to be helping get him ready. You're going to be his mentor. Kirk Cousins has already said the best quarterback should play. So I feel like they're kind of like already telling him that he's the pick. And like my only reason why they wouldn't take him is I know he had to meet with Tom Brady, and if Tom Brady's like, hey, I'm such a monster that I want to win, and I go through every detail, and I'm not like the nicest person, but I'm kind of like super competitive. And Fernando Mendoza just kind of like is such a nice guy. That's the only thing I can think
Oh
of. So
yeah,
maybe it's like one of those like, oh, the fit isn't there. Like he knows what it takes to be a good quarterback, and he's like,
Yeah.
oh, well, that's not it. But I think they're kind of they're almost I don't want to say they're hamstrung to do this. They can do whatever they want, but it feels like they've kind of put themselves in this position to take Fernando Mendoza.
Mm.
yeah. Following up to that, like you said, I love Fernando. I think he's a football guy. He respects guys that hit him hard. He has the infamous quotes at the end of games. But he also just has some of those moments where he throws pick sixes that put his team in bad positions, and credit to him for, making the comebacks against
Yeah.
Oregon and Penn State and getting those big wins. Uh, but I agree that he's at least the best quarterback in this class. It's just like you said, I don't know if he's the best player or really worthy of going number one. Ty Simpson's name's been floated around, I guess, as the second best quarterback. Would you agree with that? And how big of a gap do you think there is between these guys?
Yeah, I mean, I have a first round grade on Mendoza. I have a second round grade on Ty Simpson. I do think there is a significant gap there. I could see teams trading into the back end of the first to take Simpson because of that fifth year option that you get if you get a first round pick. So I could see that happening. Yeah, Ty Simpson was great this year. I think he's the clear number two. He's one of those guys that I was really impressed with his early season, even mid-season. He really turned it on. He was doing a really good job of his intermediate throws, layering balls through coverage, through linebackers. And there was reports that he got hurt down the stretch, and I really believe it because it just looked like it wasn't the same. Also, I think Alabama just not having a running game just kind of started to pile up as
Hmm.
it got deeper and deeper into the
Agreed.
season. So I think he could be a pretty good quarterback. I'm not sure anyone's going to like take him and say, "Hey, you're our starter year one," but
Hmm.
maybe if you're like the Rams and you say, "Hey, Matthew Stafford's getting older," or even if it's a situation where it's like a younger guy, but you don't know if he's the guy, I could see someone taking him, second round, late first round, and being like, "Hey, we're gonna mold you." Especially because he is one of those guys who was just a 1 year starter too, who's going to need some time.
Yeah.
He needs reps, but he also needs time to develop because he just obviously lost it at the end of last year.
Mm.
Yeah, Ben, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah.
Next question.
I'm curious to hear, Joe, for you, as a big Ohio State fan as I am, it's, you were talking about the best player in the draft. And, we've heard names like you hear Arvell Reese, right? He's a freak. And as a Ohio State fan, I look at that defense and to me, it's still bewildering how they didn't win a national title with that defense. Because, I mean, even in the Miami game, it wasn't like Miami really destroyed them offensively. They picked their poison, they picked their spots. So my question for you is that it's basically two questions in one. One, do you see the four Buckeyes going in the top 10? Right? That would be a first time ever, I believe, that any teams had four in the top 10. And secondly, who is the better prospect, Sonny Styles or Arvell Reese?
So I do think that all four are going to go in the top 10. Reports coming out even more recently that people don't think Caleb Downs is going to fall to number 12 in the Dallas Cowboys, which means, maybe the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be on him, which would be pretty nice, even though they've added a couple of safeties in free agency. Sometimes you just can't pass up guys who are just that good, to be honest.
Mhm.
We'll see how the board falls for everyone too. But yeah, I think all four will probably go. The thing that is tricky is just that positional value for Downs and even Styles, who's more like the off-ball linebacker to Reese. Like Reese does have some edge value, and his
Yeah.
agent says he wants to play edge, even though he just hasn't really played all that
Yeah.
much. Um, I would say Arvell Reese is the better prospect because of the athleticism, the size, and he did have such a good start to last year. I think it is still a project where you have to develop him. Sonny Styles is one of the ones where it's like all year long he was lights out. I think his first
Mhm.
missed tackle was in the Big Ten championship game or in the playoff. He was all over the
It was
field.
Miami. Yeah, it
Uh,
was Miami. That was
it
like
was
it was like
yeah.
second half of Miami. It was basically went the whole year without a missed tackle.
Yeah, and in the same way that Arvell Reese has to, or in a different way, I should say that Arvell Reese has to learn how to play the edge. If that's how he's going to get his value out of him, as
Yeah.
off-ball linebackers don't have the same value. I think Sonny Styles might be the better linebacker when it's all said and done. But he played safety. He had the time in college to learn linebacker and everything too. So
Yeah.
I think Reese is the guy I would take first. But it wouldn't shock me if Sonny Styles ends up having a better career. I mean, three out of the top four players in the draft for me are Ohio State guys, and I think that's just it's crazy, like you said, that they didn't win the championship.
Yeah. Do you think Arvell then goes two? Do you think he goes two, or do you think he'll drop to three to the Titans? Or do you feel like the Jets will do some weird, wild thing that they normally do?
But that would be crazy if they do something weird because I feel like everyone's been slotting Reese or like David Bailey or someone like that to him. I would say they're probably going to go Arvell Reese. I think they could use a player like this. I think Aaron Glenn just being on the hot seat. You take the guy that has these type of, I would say, measurables, athleticism. If Aaron Glenn says, he really understands how to call a defense. He wants to do more of that. Having a guy like Arvell Reese and being able to use him and put him wherever you want, I think is really going to help that defense a lot. So
Okay.
I would say Reese goes number two. And I think the edge value maybe helps him there too. Could the Jets take Ruben Bain? Could they take David Bailey as well? Yes, and the edge also gets fit there. But you look at all the other competition, like it's almost like who are they going to take? They're not going to take Jeremiah Love. They're not going to take Caleb Downs at two. It's anything else would be a reach besides those three guys. And I think if you're going to take your shot, I would take it on Reese.
Mm.
This draft is definitely loaded with a lot of defensive prospects, I think more so than the offense this year. And we already mentioned a few of them, David Bailey and Ruben Bain on that edge. I think this edge class is going to be awesome. Uh, Personally, Joe, on your big board, how do you rank these guys? I see David Bailey could be going 3, 4. Some people think that Ruben Bain could be maybe going first on this edge. I guess give us a little comparison on how you see these two guys, and then maybe go ahead and rank your third, fourth, and fifth edge in this class.
Got it. Yeah, no, Ruben Bain is the top edge guy. I have him a little bit higher ranked than David Bailey. I do think David Bailey has more juice as a pass rusher, but he's really only a 1 year starter in college. He was more of a rotational guy at Stanford before he transferred over to Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Really like the improvements he made as a run defender, but I just feel like if I'm going to rank these guys, I'd rather have the guy who kind of does a little bit of both. And I think that Ruben Bain provides that for you. He kicks butt as a run defender. He's a guy who can rush from the inside too if you want to get creative or don't think he has the bend or flexibility for the edge. But yeah, I think they're very close in the ranking, both really top 10 guys. I just more about preference. I would just take the more well-rounded player that at my number one spot with Bain. Bailey right behind him. Third is Keldrick Falk. Don't really like the production, but I also think that Auburn used him the wrong way. It was more of like there was a lot of times he was a 3-4 defensive end or as a part of a three man line, and like is this guy an edge? Is he an interior defensive lineman? Something that I think they struggled with. So I'm going to have him as the third edge. If some team drafts him, wants to move him inside, maybe that's the better career path for him. But
Mhm.
um, wanted to see more production out of him, and I think it mostly had to do with that more than anything else. I can also refine his pass rush moves. I have Akeem Mesidor out of Miami as the fourth.
Mm.
Uh, Gets knocked for being an older prospect, but he plays as hard as almost anyone in the class. He's pretty refined, good pass rush moves. Doesn't really bend, but I think he has that strength and that power that if there's some of these teams who are picking pretty early that, maybe in that 10 to 20 range, you got like the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Ravens, maybe that range, Cowboys. They want someone who can play right now. I mean, if he's 25 years old and can't play right now, what are we doing? So I think he's pretty good at number four. And then I have Cassius Howe at number five, the Texas A&M edge rusher.
Mm.
Short arms, call him a T-Rex or whatever, but he really has a lot of juice on the edge, good pass rush moves, and I think he can at least start as a rotational guy. Maybe he can fill out his frame a little bit more and be more of a run defender. But you're right, there's a lot of good edge rushers here too. So I know tons of people have different rankings. I just kind of have the top five.
Mm.
Yeah, the order that they could go into, I got no idea. Like you said, Keldrick Falk didn't really have the production, but people are looking at the potential, maybe some mismanagement by Auburn, like you said. Mesidor,
Shocker, by
the
the way.
age.
Shocker by Auburn mismanaging someone.
Yeah, that's why a lot of the guys hopped into the portal. But yeah, then Mesidor with the age. I did like the production that Howe got, and then more recently now, it looks like Ruben Bain could be the guy that randomly has a criminal investigation pop up. That just came out this week, and we've seen this happen with Jalen Carter. We've seen this happen on like literally the day before the draft with like Laramie Tunzel. Does it look like Bain's gonna end up being that guy? And do you think it affects where he gets picked in the draft? I know where you think of him talent wise, but as far as where he maybe goes, could this be
Character
something that knocks
wise.
him out of the top 10?
I think maybe because although it seems, and thanks for the NFL insiders who said they knew about this for months, just telling us about this now, which is
Oh
I
yeah.
love
good. The
that. I
NFL,
love that, by the way.
yeah. Hey, thank you. Dropping, you could have told us at any point. Yeah, it's a situation where I think it starts to this whole draft class. Like, there's not the most elite talent. It's after the top four guys where we have Jeremiah Love, Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese and Sonny Styles. For me, at least, are the top four guys. There is a drop off where you're just like these guys are either outliers because of one thing or the other. So Ruben Bain already has the fact that his arm length is shorter than most people, and NFL teams love the arm length if they have it, and he just doesn't have that. So he's kind of an outlier in that sense. Then you start adding on this to it. I think it could be a reason to drop. I'm not really sure how far, but if teams are as close with like Ruben Bain and David Bailey, like I'm on my board, I'm thinking like, okay, maybe he drops a couple spots. Maybe I'll take David Bailey first instead of taking Ruben Bain because of that. Yeah, it's weird that all the details are coming out now, so it's hard to say. But I would say if teams have any questions already about Ruben Bain, then this just kind of adds to it. So I would say maybe he falls a little bit. I don't think it's going to like hurt a stock like he's going to be. I don't know, like Brady Quinn. Everyone thinks he's going to go top five or whatever. Then he falls to 22 or Aaron Rodgers. But I think it might be a couple picks for sure.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to touch on the point that I think many people are talking about. Um, Joe, please tell me you don't agree with like 90% of the other people that say that because Carnell Tate runs a freaking 4.46 almost, that he's now the worst wide receiver out of the top five guys. Please tell me you don't think like that's got to be crazy, right? Like to me, I just feel like Carnell Tate, I've watched this man for the last 3 years never be the top guy, by the way, never be the top guy, and probably could have went anywhere and been the top guy. And he's constantly outrunning and then stacking on top of DBs. So for me, I'm curious what you think of him and then where you put the other receivers. I don't personally, in my rankings, I don't think is as close to what people say. I think just what he can do on the field, and he's healthy. Tyson's never been healthy. He's always been banged up. You have a lot of these other guys have been banged up. You always could count on Tate. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. And can you please shut down the rumors that he is like a terrible wide receiver prospect?
He is not a terrible wide receiver prospect. He is wide receiver number one for me. This is the guy I really enjoyed watching him this year because the improvements he made from last year to this past
Yeah.
season of football was crazy. Better releases at the right line of scrimmage. Like you said, he was able to stack defensive backs pretty easily, get vertical, make those contested catches. In the same way Sonny Styles was like automatic with his tackles, Parnell Tate was almost automatic with those contested catches. It was crazy. Yeah, like the speed, is it like mind blowing, but it's still pretty good for a player of his size as
Yeah.
well. So I'm with you. I think he's wide receiver one. Is he ever going to be a wide receiver one at the pro level? No, but like, I don't think that that's what we're talking about with this draft class. We're like,
No.
if you get a really good number two, I'm happy with that. And to your point, yeah, Jordan Tyson, could he have been that wide receiver one if he was healthy the whole time? Had he played all year this year? Maybe. I think I really do like some of the things he does, but it's hard for me to sign off on taking a guy who just always is injured. I feel like that's one of the more frustrating things is when your team drafts a guy and then it's like, oh, he's played like less than 50% of the snaps in his whole career because he's been injured the whole time. And then you kind of go to Mekhi Lemon too, and it's like, I get why people love him. I love watching him too. He goes over the middle. He's tough. He's a good slot, but we're also taking a slot player in who also did not, not the guy who people think will test well. Taking him that early or maybe his wide receiver one, and I'm kind of like, I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's awesome. But I don't know if he saying like, oh, he could be like him is the reason why we should take him that early over someone like Cardinal
Yeah.
Tate. So I'm very clearly Cardinal Tate, wide receiver one. And yeah, whether it's this is not like the Marvin Harrison draft where everyone, thinks he's going to be like the top wide receiver in the league in a couple of years. But I'd be very happy if he's my wide receiver two in 2 to 3 years, I think.
I'm curious, where do you have him going to the Browns? Is that where you have him, or do you have him kind of slipping a little bit behind that pick in that sense?
I've had him going to the Browns for the most part. I thought about changing it, to be honest, as we get closer to the draft, because the Browns do need a lot of that offensive line help. But I also think that this is a class where you could get offensive linemen later on, obviously in the first round. You could see, honestly, which offensive tackles might fall to you, which interior linemen might fall to you. We don't really have a clear gauge on where some of these guys are going, so there could be a chance for some of these guys to slide. So whether it's Fano, who now people are saying he might slide in the draft a little bit, Maui Noah, people are saying might go higher than expected, but you know, I don't know. Caleb Lomu has fallen down boards. Wonder if Freeling has started to jump up boards, but still he's kind of raw too. So and Caden Proctor with all the issues maybe moving to guard. There's a lot of good, I think, tackles or interior linemen, whoever they want to go after, that could be there later in the first round. So I would say go with the wide receiver there and at least get a
Yeah.
a decent target for the quarterback, whoever you're going to make the quarterback of the future.
When you evaluate receivers, Joe, I'm curious. I've heard different scenarios, but what do you think NFL teams right now value the most at a receiver? We hear hands, we hear quick feet. I'm coaching over here in Hungary, and like we have an American who played at UCLA, and he was telling me like what Chip Kelly expected when Chip Kelly recruited him, which by the way is really funny for me to be coaching a kid who played for Chip Kelly. Like I feel like I'm anywhere close to that level of a coach, but I'm just curious for you, what do you evaluate when you look at this and when you rank these guys, especially with receiver and even running back a little bit, but mainly receiver in that sense?
Yeah, so I tend to prefer the smaller, shiftier guys in my rankings, and maybe not the ones who stretch the field vertically as much. But I feel like the way the league is going with the two high safety looks all the
Yeah.
time now, you're not beating teams deep. You can find guys, free agents who can stretch the field vertically who are just fast, maybe not the best receivers. Guys like Gabe Davis who traditionally get downfield, but you can. I think for me, you have to find guys who can create after the catch. So,
Smith and
um,
Jigba in that sense.
yeah, yeah, and he can stretch the field vertically too. But I feel like if you don't have that ability to win in the underneath part of the field at this point, these quarterbacks are just not taking shots downfield.
Yeah,
They're not going deep, and you have to find a way to move the football. And I would say that's what I'm looking for more so, just based on the recent schematic developments in the game. And that could,
trends. Yeah.
yeah, that could change in 2 years where some of the guys who are more, bigger bodied guys might be something that's better. But
Hmm.
I kind of feel like that's kind of the trend right now. Is like I don't know, I feel like
Gotcha.
the guy like Denzel Boston a couple of years ago, people will be hyping up more a bigger bodied guy, but now I think it's kind of going to speed separation and run after catch ability just because the safety looks.
Mm.
I got a Carnell take question too. Initially, when the season was going on and people were trying to guess, pre-mock drafts or predicting things, I figured Carnell would probably be a first round pick, but I thought he'd be somewhere in the 20s because we've had, I think, better Ohio State receivers come through. Like Garrett Wilson was picked 10th. I think Chris Olave was 11th, and JSN, even with his health concerns, was still a 20th pick. And then Marvin Harrison, like one of the more elite receiver prospects we've had come through, went fourth. And then when the actual season ended and we saw the real mock drafts start coming out, you're seeing Carnell predicted, as high as fourth to Tennessee, maybe fifth to the Giants, pair him up with Malik Neighbors and get Jackson Dart another guy, or sixth to Cleveland. And I'm like, man, is Carnell Tate really that good? Like maybe in this class, like he's the best receiver, but just comparing him to even other great Ohio State receivers that have come through, and even like top receiver prospects. Like I think Keyshawn Johnson's the only receiver to go one, but then Megatron went two, and like I just said, Marv went four, and Jamar Chase went five. And it's like Carnell Tate, is he really in that company? Because I think if you put Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Marvin Harrison, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson all in a room and are like, pick, you told everyone go ahead and pick who you want. I think Carnell Tate's probably going to be the last one there, but he could end up being the second highest taken out of all these guys. And then it also makes me wonder where Jeremiah Smith could go if he could be the next number one overall wide
Jeez.
receiver next year. So
He'll be
all
one.
that to
That's what's gonna
say,
happen.
like, do you think this is more so just how the draft order shook up and with team needs that Tate's getting considered like this, or do you think maybe more so what you were just explaining about how the NFL is changing schematically, it makes Tate more of an attractive prospect?
Yeah, I think it's more just this draft class. Like a couple of years ago would have had Marv, would have had Malik Neighbors rated ahead of him. There's just not that elite guy in this class. So I do think he's the best of a draft class that I think has some depth, but doesn't have that overall star power. And like I said, maybe a wide receiver too for several years, honestly, in his career. I think he can be a very successful pro. But you also kind of take into effect what the top of the like team's big boards will look like, and it's like okay, Jeremiah Love, running back, not a position teams value all that much anymore. You got Caleb Down, safety, not a position teams value. Then you have Arvell Reese. Is he an edge? Is he a linebacker? If he's an edge, he might have value, but he's never played it, and at least in a big sense. And then linebacker, and him and Sonny Styles linebackers, like they don't have value either. So it's very for me, it's like very like almost like he's that high because of the draft class. He's a solid player, first round pick for me for sure. But it's one of those things where I think the draft class being a little bit down and also just positions that are good in this draft class are ones that aren't typically prioritized by NFL teams in the draft. I think that's what makes it happen.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I'm interested too on player profiles in a sense, and this is kind of like I don't think even Josh thought I would say this. Is there anyone from a non Power Four school? Even you can even go D2 if you want. I don't care. I know you're into all this drafting stuff. Is there a guy out there that no one really knows yet that you're like, dude, this dude has potential. This guy is going to be a difference maker in the NFL. Is there a guy out there, and maybe even not even the Toledo safety who's kind of on the edge of the first round, but like a guy really that really no one's thinking about right now?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I'll rule out anyone with Neil Warren. I'll rule out maybe Chris Johnson, the corner from San Diego State. Those are both really good ones, but it is the transfer portal era, so there's not many. I will
Yeah.
say one of the ones I did like is Charles Demings, the corner from Stephen F. Austin, sorry, at the FCS level. A guy who showed good man coverage. He's gonna have to adjust, obviously, to a whole new level of football
Yeah.
going to the NFL. But that's kind of like the deep sleeper I have from like a smaller conference. It is
Where do you
like
think he'll go,
well,
by the way? Where do you think the range would be for him?
I think he'll probably be like somewhere from the third to the fifth round,
Okay.
probably. Try not to give anyone who's going to go in the top 2 rounds or anything like that, but I think he's a guy that's going to have to adjust, and he's at least one of them. I think got someone like Ted Hurst, the wide receiver from Georgia State. Had offers to go other places too. Decided to stay at Georgia State. He could be a good player. He's a guy who wins mostly like contested catches. Not as much like going to be a separator. So it's going to be one of those where you have to, can he do that at the pro level? That type of thing. I think those are two of the guys I'm kind of looking at. But man, is it harder to find smaller school prospects these days with
Yeah,
everyone moving on up?
it is hard, and I almost wonder too, when do you feel like now? Because you're seeing like North Dakota State, they're moving up to FBS, which is a huge step because that was always like kind of a hot pocket for guys you could find that maybe just wanted to stay in the FCS level, right? They didn't really want to move up; they want to kind of dominate in that level. We've seen guys struggle, with moving up. Do you think now with the transfer portal, do you think it's giving, in a sense, more opportunities for these FCS guys to maybe prove themselves at the FBS level and almost help their draft stock in a sense? Because even if maybe they weren't the guy at FCS, but maybe they had talent and a school sees them, let's say at Nebraska or somewhere like that. Do you feel like now with the transfer portal the way it is, do you feel like that's allowing more of these smaller FCS D2 guys that maybe would have really struggled to get a look and maybe they would have got drafted in the seventh round, but then had to fight their way on? Do you think that can move them into that third to fourth round range to give them a chance?
Yeah, no, I do think it's helping. I think there is a little bit of, I would say, fear of drafting guys from the FCS level or the Division 2 level that, good scouts will try to like say, hey, how is this going to project the NFL? It's just hard to do when they're not
It
playing the best
is. Yeah.
competition. Now they go up to, even from FCS to FBS, if it's even at a non-power division or conference, and then they go to a power conference. I think it gives that like sort of upward mobility where you can see how it stacks up because there's plenty of transfers who don't work out. There's plenty of transfers who do figure it out. I mean, it's one of those things where just getting a good look at extra competition gives you a good look at a player. Like there's times where I'm watching, like you mentioned, the Toledo safety Emmanuel McNeil Warren, and it's like, okay, I'm going to go watch his game against Kentucky. Albeit not a good Kentucky team last year, but just to see how he
Yeah.
does against better competition. And I think just having that ability, we know those college teams are trying to get older. That was a theme,
Mhm.
obviously, with Miami, and they're running the CFP. It's going to give these guys more chances than had they stayed. Unfortunately, even though they could have been a star
Yeah.
at the FCS level.
I will say it's going to be, you're going to probably miss doing all these scouting reports though of the unknown guys. Like I feel like as a guy doing draft, I feel that's the fun part is finding these dudes that no one knows about. Now it's going to be boring. It's like, oh, everyone's at the freaking FBS level.
No, it is getting to a point where it's like, all right, this guy's from Georgia, this guy's from Ohio State, this guy's from LSU, and it's like, San Diego State, is there. That's cool. Toledo's there, but it's like so few and far between. And I feel like that's something that obviously college sports is trying to figure out now. But it does make it so it's like, oh wow, there's this Caleb Tiernan, the offensive tackle from Northwestern. Now he's the guy who no one's talking about because it's from Northwestern, not one of the big schools. So it's
Yeah.
gotten to a point now where it's like obviously more concentrated, but you have to find those guys that no one else is talking
Yeah.
about, and it's just at bigger schools.
Yeah.
Shifting gears a little bit, I got a team question or team focus question for you. I think
Oh
one of the
boy.
teams that could go literally any position that you want is the Miami Dolphins. You look through the roster and they got the most veteran minimum guys on the team. They're basically paying a whole roster money to not play for them this coming season. So they don't have a whole lot of money to spend even more on free agency. So we've seen the Dolphins kind of like, scrap the whole roster and rebuild before and just accumulate a bunch of picks. So I guess on that note, Jalen Waddle's the most recent guy they traded. Do you think they're done dealing right now before the draft? And then who are they going to take at 11, man? I could see them going tight end with Kenyon Sadiq, but I could
Oh,
also see them going like offensive line and getting a tackle. I could see
uh,
them trying to find their replacement for Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle. There's just a lot of different directions I think the Dolphins could go. And when it came to doing our mocks, we've done two mock drafts so far, Ben, and every time I get to the Dolphins, I'm just like, this is the hardest one for me to decide, honestly.
and by the way, and my good coaching friend here in Hungary is a Dolphins fan. I told him what I did and I put Sadiq as the guy. He was so offended that I went tight end for the Dolphins. He said, "Listen, give me anyone other than a tight end. I'm not doing this again." So I'm curious now to hear what you have to say because he was very much anti. He's like, "Give me anybody. I don't care who it is. Someone that's not a tight end or a non-terrible position."
Yeah, I sort of respect doing the full teardown they're doing, right? I mean, I wish they would I wish they would just go absolutely full, complete tear down everyone, and they've kind of done that, but just even go all the way in. Um, yeah, I do think they're probably done trading at this point. There's definitely some guys on their team they could trade and get some value back for, but I feel like we're too close to the draft now to be start swinging the player for picks trades. Usually they happen, before free agency or after free agency, not like at this point now, but I could be surprised too. I would say for me, I would think that they're going to want to, new coaching staff in there. I would think they're going to want to go offensive line and just get that shored up because that's something that the last regime did not want to do. They did not want to take offensive linemen. And that was some reason why they struggled, obviously, with having two at quarterback who was injured and, you know, all the issues that came with that. I think they're going to prioritize that, but it really is like choose your own adventure. If you like a guy, just take the best player on your board because you're going to find playing time for him. I mean, let this Jeremiah Love. I don't think there's anyone else you just feel like, oh, we have a player at this position we really like. Like it's just
Mm.
they have so many options, which is kind of a good thing, but also like the rebuild is going to take a long time and may never get there.
Draft too
May never
early.
get
It's a
there.
draft too early, is what happened. It's a draft too
Yeah,
early for
true,
that.
true.
Yeah, I think I don't know what Ben had, or actually you said you
I
had Sadiq. I
well,
had
no, I checked. You can tell them what you had. I'll tell them what I had.
I
I'll
was
have
gonna
to
say
check
at least
mine.
in the last mock, I had them taking Monroe Freeling, the tackle from Georgia. I know that's a guy that's been soaring up some people's boards, and maybe Ben had Sadiq
Yeah,
on
I did
mock
had no,
1.0.
I had Sadiq one, I had Freeling. Sorry, Sadiq I had this last one in 2.0 and I had Freeling in 1.0.
I
But
got you.
now I've been scolded by my Dolphins friends. I can't do it again. So I got to change that for my last mock.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the Dolphins. Another team that I think it's a little more obvious which side of the football they're going to address, but there's a lot of different players they could decide to go with, and that's
Cowboys?
the Cowboys.
I
Yes.
knew it. I knew it.
Dallas Cowboys. This is a team I know Joe's familiar with. So, one of the
Jerry's
worst
world.
defenses last year, and I know they got two first rounders. So I just have them addressing defense with both of the picks. And I know that you'd be, licking your chops if Caleb Downs is available at 12, and that's obviously who you go with that first pick. But if he does go top 10, uh, I know there's the option of maybe Jermod McCoy, maybe take a chance on him. I know he was injured all last season, but one of the, stronger corners in this class. You could also go edge and get the pass rush up. There's definitely going to be guys like Cassius Howe and Hakeem Mazador available in those ranges. So, do you think they go defense, both of these picks?
I
They
think so,
should.
but you never know what Jerry's going to do. Like he could be like,
I
"Oh, we need a
know
third receiver." That's the tough
they
part.
didn't need a third receiver that one year they took CD Lamb and they did it
I,
and ended up panning out.
hey, I have them going two
Yeah.
DBs, and they need DB help, so they should go two corners here. They should go Terrell and they should go Delane. Make my mock right, okay? That's what they should do.
Yeah, I think there's Downs is going to be gone. I think both corners are in play with their first pick at 12. I think they might shy away from McCoy because they took Savon Ravel from ECU last year, who also was injured coming in and maybe not wanting to have to go through that process again. I think he might be shying away from that. I think
Dylan
Delane is a
Thieneman.
good. Yeah, I
Dylan
think Dylan
Thieneman.
Thieneman. I think those two guys. I think Delane and Thieneman might be the guys who are at the top of their boards for the first pick. Getting a corner just has to be done for Delane, and such a good season at LSU. And then Thieneman, there are some coaching staff connections to, I think, his time at Purdue. I'll have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's to his time at Purdue on the coaching staff. Christian Parker comes in as DC. I think he has enough weight to kind of like say, hey, traditionally you guys don't take safety this high, but I'm the defensive coordinator. I want a safety. The back end of this defense has to be better. And I do think that he'd be a good fit for this team because he played so well. More specifically at Purdue when he was like in single high or trusted in the deep split zone. And that's something that like Oregon used him a little bit differently than Purdue did. But
And he
I think with his
struggled
skill,
too. Don't you feel like he struggled a little bit in that like more awkward role? Because even when Ohio State tried to get him to go to Ohio State, they kept saying we would want him to play more of that Caleb Downs role, but on the other side, where he could play deep, he could play inside. It felt like Oregon just put him like in the slot or like
yeah,
in
yeah.
these weird spots, which didn't seem to fit his game.
No, it didn't. I think you have to like give him the space to cover, and they just didn't do it. And trying to make him Caleb Downs is not Caleb Downs is Caleb Downs, and you have to play. I think Dylan Thieneman's a very good player, but like it takes a lot of football smarts to do what Caleb Downs did, and so football aware that it's good. It's a good fit for him, but for Thieneman, it's more about that range and being able to see the whole field in front of him rather than making those quick split second decisions that Downs is able to do. So I think it'd be a good fit for him because how many big plays did they give up? It seemed like them and the Bengals specifically were like the two worst defenses going back and forth every week last year and having so many coverage busts. So I would like a corner and a safety. I think they're probably going to go one defensive back, and then with the second pick, they're probably going to go with an edge rusher. But who that could be, I don't know. Maybe it depends on who falls. I guess there's plenty of, as Josh said earlier, there's plenty of good edge rushers they could find at 20.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it'd be odd if they went the same position both picks, but again, the Falcons did it last year with defensive line, and at least the James Pierce pick is panning out so far for
Pl-
him. So
Please do a Jerry pick. My head coach is a Cowboys fan. He's from LA, but he's a Cowboys fan. I told him I just want them to do like just draft a quarterback. Like I just want him to do something so stupid with that second pick that just makes Cowboys fans a little irate for the next year. Like what are we doing? Because it just makes it feel like it's Cowboys again. Just makes it feel like it's the America's team to mess up a pick.
That's the big risks are always what he was the selling card, right? Like that got him the Super Bowls, but like now it's like the big risks in the last 10, 20 years. Well, in the last 5 or 10 years, they haven't really done any big risks. And I kind of do miss that. I like, the storylines of him just being so aggressive and doing something out of left field or whatever. I feel like if there's been talks that they're trying to trade up earlier into the top 10, maybe that's Caleb Downs. What if he pulls a Jerry move and just takes Jeremiah Love or something like that? That'd be crazy. But if they don't need running back. Javonte Williams is back. I don't think he's the greatest running back, but he was very productive last year. But I could see old Jerry doing something like that, trading up and then taking Jeremiah Love.
That's funny.
let me ask you about Jeremiah Love right now, Joe, because I think we are past the era of running backs, teams being scared to take them high now. I think after the Browns trade or drafted Trent Richardson and he
I don't
busted
remember
the
that,
way he
Josh.
did.
Josh, I'm trying to forget that, Josh. We don't talk about that.
Well, point being, after they did that, teams were like, shoot, we can't draft a running back till the fourth round now because that could happen. But we've had years now where like Saquon's gone two and Genty more recently went six, and we've seen Todd Gurley go top 10, and like all these picks are panning out. So I think Jeremiah Love is obviously the clear cut running back one in this class. I struggle in my mock where to put him exactly. I've had him at 18 going to the Vikings, and I think that's a little low. But I just think that some of the teams that are being
I'm
slotted
going
to
to the
pick him, like
Panthers.
the it could be now that Rico's gone, but I just bring that up because some of the teams that have been being mocked to take him, like the Titans, I just think they got maybe some bigger needs than running back to worry about right now. I know the Chiefs were in the discussion, but now they got Kenneth Walker, so that's not really a need. And after you get out of the top 10, no one really needs a running back until maybe Minnesota at 18. So that's where I've been going. But where do you think Jeremiah could go? Just discuss him as a prospect. I thought 2 years ago it was a real concern that he never really produced against the big teams, but this year, especially down the stretch, once he started playing some of those Power Five teams, they were just going off. And I think Notre Dame just had like a sense of urgency that we might not make the playoff because of those two losses that we had, and we have to show everyone that we can just beat the crap out of everybody. And so they were just feeding Jeremiah over and over and over again. So it might have even been like just a schematic thing that Notre Dame they just decided to give up on the run early, and that's why he wasn't getting the ball more so than not trusting him. Didn't matter anyway. Notre Dame didn't make the playoffs, but all that to say, give us your take on Jeremiah Love. Maybe as high as he could go, as low as he could go, and then just as a running back prospect.
Yeah, no, he's great. I have him rated higher than Ashton Genty from last year. I think his ability as a receiver is there. Great athlete, good vision. I think one of the things you have to be worried about with him is the hurdling too much. He hurdles like every play, and I'm just sitting there watching like this dude's gonna get hurt. Like I'm watching like, hey, dude, you have to settle down a little bit. Not every play is the Super Bowl. Get out of bounds. I like his competitiveness, but he can get better in that. He can get better maybe in pass pro too. But he's a really good running back. I think he's worth taking almost any pick in this draft after one if it's someone wanted to and there was a fit. You're right, the fit for running backs isn't the greatest. I think he's a guy who I've mocked to the Titans consistently. I don't know if that's going to happen because of what you said with like they could just go offensive line. They could figure something else out to get this team in position. I would say that I think he'd be a good person to put back there with Cam Ward. I just don't know if you want to take him when like the rest of the team isn't all the way set up. That's the earliest I think I could see him going is four. I've heard some rumblings about maybe pick number three, but the Cardinals just got Tyler Algier as well. So you're adding him to a backfield that has James Conner coming back, and then you're going to draft Jeremiah Love. And I don't really understand that strategy if they do it, but I guess they could. And then I think the lowest is probably where you have him at 18 to the Vikings. Aaron Jones is aging, and I think that they need to get the offense going. And I think most of the issues are obviously a quarterback position, but getting someone like Jeremiah Love could really open up the game because I think we saw it at Notre Dame in the opposite way. Like you said last year, Josh, they didn't really do the greatest at getting him going against good teams. They didn't have the passing game. Riley Leonard really wasn't throwing the ball that well, to be honest. And then this year, CJ Carr, the first couple games struggles, but then he kind of gets way, way better as the season goes on, and it opens things up for Jeremiah Love. So maybe Love can open things up for the Vikings. That would be kind of the latest I could see him going. I think he's just way too talented.
That's kind of my thought too, is just the passing game situation over there with McCarthy just take some pressure off of him. I don't know if Aaron Jones is that guy right now, especially at his age. So, um, 18, yeah, it's probably a really good value pick for them. Like you said, the talent, he could go higher. I struggle with how high, I guess.
Yeah.
Tennessee's one of those teams too, where it's like you got Robert Salah, defensive coach. Do they decide to go like defense with that pick? Do they decide to go Carnell Tate and get a receiver for Cam Ward, who they just took first overall last year? Do they want to add protection for him on the offensive line? Or do they, go Jeremiah Love and give him a weapon in the backfield? Tennessee's one of those teams I think could go a lot of different ways too.
I I have a twofold question here. So here's my question. First part of the question. Browns had the pick at 24. I've consistently in my mock draft had Caden Proctor. I know the Browns like Caden Proctor. I've heard he's going to go higher. I don't think he'll go higher. If he does, it may be the late teens, early 20s. Um, do you feel like that's where the Browns will go? If they do, I mean, obviously it's like one or the other. I think if they go tackle in the first pick, they'll go receiver second pick. Concepcion probably makes sense for that second pick. I don't want him. I say take Tate. He's there. Take him. If he's there, take him. Right. Part of me is like, well, if somehow Sonny Styles or Arvell Reese is sitting there, maybe you do a stupid Browns thing and do that. But I'm interested to hear your thoughts there. And then on twofold, because in that same kind of range of picks, we might see another high state come off the board in Caden McDonald. And I'm interested to hear about what the Browns will do there. And then also, what do you feel about Caden McDonald? Where do you have him as a prospect? I know a lot of people are like, he's been really claiming it. And I've seen it. He is a better pass rusher than people give him credit for. They told him about him just a big run stuffer. I mean, the dude is quick off his feet. I mean, he's one of the quickest with his hands, his feet. I mean, he's 330 pounds and he moves like he's a nimble 180. So I'm curious what you think the Browns will do at 24. And then where do you see Caden McDonald falling? Some people say he's going to fall at the end of the first round. I don't think so. I think he's just too talented to pass up in that late first round.
Yeah, I think Proctor could fit what they typically do. Obviously, you have DeJuan Jones, who's a bigger offensive tackle. That's what Proctor is going to be if you take him. The issue is, I guess, for some teams, they think he's going to slide into guard. Obviously, the Browns have signed some guards in free
Yeah.
agency. I don't think it really matters. Just get the best offensive lineman possible
Yeah.
because the Browns were so desperate for it. But this is a guy that could fit their MO. I do think he could fit a tackle, and maybe it's for them in this developmental phase. Maybe you give him a chance to work a tackle, and then next year, if it doesn't work out, move him into guard. We've seen that work with guys like Mekhi Becton, who was a little bigger as well. So maybe that's something where the Browns can afford to do it because they need so much on the offensive line. So I could see that being a good pick. But I do think that there's so many tackles who will be like available in that range, whether they're worth it or not. Like people are talking about Max Ihenacho from Arizona State in that range. They're talking about Caleb Lomu in that range. We're talking about a bunch of different guys who the Browns could take. So I do think it's going to be, like you said, it's going to be wide receiver in one pick, tackle in the other, or offensive lineman in the other, however you want to phrase it. And they'll go from there. In terms of Cade McDonald, I have him pretty highly ranked. I have him with the first round grade, top defensive tackle in the class. You're right. He is a better pass rusher than he is given credit for. I think because he wasn't asked to do it, I think he's getting moved down boards. And I don't think it's a bad thing to say, like, hey, you have to prove it more consistently and get that
Hmm.
chance. I
Yeah.
do think that he would be more in play for top 10 pick, especially in this draft, if he had shown that more at the college level. I think he's a guy that, with time and effort, I think he could be one of those guys who, from the interior, can really wreck game plans up pretty well. So I see similar things. I think he's a really good player. He really moves well for his size. I really do like his run defense to start, and I do think the potential is there for pass rushing, and especially in a defensive line class that has guys who have kind of gone up and down. I think Cade McDonald's been one of the ones who's been like steady, whereas like Peter Woods with the measurements and kind of the Van Clemson season, and Caleb Banks with another foot injury, and it seems like Christian Miller was kind of down. Now he's kind of back up. Caden McDonald's been right there the whole time, and I think he's like again, maybe not worth the top 10 pick, but especially where the Browns are taking at the back half of the first round or any team after like pick 15 or so, I think it's kind of a good pick.
Hmm. I love that.
I go back and forth with what might be the best combo for the Browns given, player availability. Like I do think it's going to be, either wide receiver tackle or tackle wide receiver. And I think they're only going to go wide receiver at 6 if Carnell Tate is there. So maybe the Titans or the Giants can just make this easy for them and then they just go tackle at that 6 pick. But just looking at like the range of guys, like if you get to Carnell at 6, then the caliber of tackle you're looking at, like Ben said, Caden Proctor. Or you could get like a maybe like a Blake Miller or like a Caleb Lomu, like you said. But if you go tackle first, I'm assuming that's going to be, in the maybe Francis Maui-Noah slips, or you get Spencer Fano over there. And then the wide receiver you're looking at is in that like Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, or more recently, I've been seeing Omar Cooper Jr. jump up the ranks too. I know you got Carnell going 6, but if you were to go tackle first, I guess what's the better value do you think, given the players that they could get there? Do you think it'd be better for them to go wide receiver first, or you think it'd be better to go tackle first?
It could be better to go tackle first, and probably because of the value, but also because I think the types of receivers are so different you could get, and it may not be exactly what the Browns want. So, for instance, we could have Denzel Boston, who's the bigger body guy available. You could have Casey Concepcion, who's like the speedster. Omar Cooper, who has risen up boards and he definitely deserves it, but like is a kind of a middle in between there, like a run after the catch type of guy. And maybe that's a reason to wait and you can get whichever one you like, but maybe the guys you want are off the board and you're looking for a big bodied receiver and then Denzel Boston's gone and you're kind of like, well, the next big bodied receiver on the board is Elijah Surratt or someone who's later on in the second and third round. I'd rather take the guy that you want at 6, whether it is Tate or if you want to trade down and try to get Tyson or Lemon, which I don't think they're going to do. I think it would be Tate. I'd rather do that and kind of take whatever tackle is available because it lets you, I think, build the wide receiver room in a way that you want to for the future.
They need to,
Obviously, you have
please.
yeah, they have guys who like right now I don't think you're really attached to with Jerry Judy and Cedric Tillman and everything, but like I think that this is like you can get the guy for the future that fits the mold that you want at wide receiver, whereas the tackle I don't think it matters as much which one's there.
And heck, you fail next year, and you can get Jeremiah Smith with the number 1 pick, and then you got your 2 Buckeyes right back there. I'm just saying. I'm not saying to do it. I'm just saying if it happens, that is.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, Tate being available could make it a easier decision more than a difficult one. It's just like you said, Joe, when you get to the wide receivers at the end, maybe it is better to just get the guy you want and build your room how you want. I know Ben can attest to this too. We haven't done very well at getting the small, speedy guys like the Casey Concepcions. We've taken
No.
shots at like Anthony Schwartz and David Bell, and it hasn't worked out there. So you really need like that bigger guy you can count on to be your wide
Coleman
receiver
from
one.
Baylor. Oh,
Oh yeah,
still
Coleman
kills
too.
me.
Yeah, we
Oh,
haven't done good at those situations,
no.
or even like just drafting receivers in general. It's been
Yeah.
rough out here.
Uh, I have my final question that I wrote down, and this is a question that you might have to go into your like archives for this one.
Oh boy.
Here's my thing. I coach special teams over here in Hungary, right? And special teams is like a big part of the game. I think it's a lot of people forget about it. Is there a specialist out there that either will get drafted? Okay, maybe not the second round like Aguayo did a few years ago, which would end up being a terrible decision by the Buccaneers. But is there a specialist out there, kicker, punter, that long snapper? I know, I'm just kidding. There's no long snapper getting drafted, but kicker or punter that could really make a difference, and I think that could really do some things for teams. And then on the same discussion with that, is there a returner type of guy that will get drafted more for what he can do in the special teams game than maybe he could do as a receiver or running back or DB?
Yeah, I don't think this is the greatest specialist class, so I don't know if there's going to be one draft. I'm sure there will be at the late rounds. There always is. And
Yeah.
yeah, the Steelers. Remember the Steelers took the long snapper a couple of years ago too,
Yeah,
and
they
everyone's
did.
like,
Yeah.
"What? You don't need to do that. What are you doing?" But I appreciate at least that the specialists are getting some love. I don't
Yeah.
think this is the best draft for him, and I think maybe some of the prospects that have been drafted in the last couple of years who have struggled, it's just a kicker, punter, whatever. So many teams have moved on from the guys they took in the draft. Like the 49ers with Jake Moody, like moved on
Yeah.
really quickly and everything, and sometimes rightfully so. But I think that kind of maybe it's given everyone a little bit of gun shyness that will be there. In terms of returners who might be picked more for what they can do as a returner than a wide receiver or whatever, I I think Zach Branch is kind of that guy. I'm not, that's
Yeah.
like, that's the top answer because all of his routes were like behind the line of scrimmage. It's kind of a gadget type player at Georgia, USC. There was a little bit more to it, but I think he's a guy that had such a good return game early in his career at
Mhm.
USC. He's a guy who might go at least higher because of his return ability. And then I'd also say Josh Cameron out of Baylor is really,
Yeah.
really good returner. And I'm not really sure, like he's a solid receiver. I think he could be good as a receiver, like a decent receiver, but it's going to be one of those things where maybe he's going to be the fourth or fifth wide receiver on your depth chart, but he's really just going to be on the team to be a returner.
Do you feel like teams when they draft special like I always wonder what teams think like, hey, I'm gonna go draft a punter in this fifth round. Like, do you feel it's because they feel like there's a chance that guy gets selected and they really need a punter? Because I feel like with specialists, you can go sign like you see teams sign like three kickers after the draft. So my curious is like, why do teams do that? I understand returners because returners have more value. Obviously, they have different things they can do. Do you think teams do it because they like the guy so much, or maybe they have a coach in the staff that really likes the guy? Because is it really worth spending a pick where you can get these guys as free agents, basically?
I've always thought that too. I think it's more panic. We don't have something, we need to get it. Let's fill all our needs type of thing. When it's like, are you going to get a great player with that pick if it's not a specialist? Maybe not, especially in the later rounds, but sometimes it's worth that shot rather than taking a specialist
It's
where
just
you
funny.
can't. Yeah, you can get them as free agents, and I think a lot of times some of the GMs are trying to avoid those headaches where you have a kicker at the start of the season, and in week two, you're looking for a new one, and then that new kicker stinks, and you're looking for a new one, and they're
Yeah,
doing the kicker
yeah.
shuffle all year long. And I think that's something they don't want to do. And unfortunately, I think it hinders the decision making. And even I think we gotten to a point now where at least the kickers aren't going too high. I mean, maybe since the Moody pick and it was a third round pick,
Yeah.
and maybe that's a little bit more balanced, where maybe you can take them in the like seventh round and it doesn't matter. But I do feel like it's a little bit more of like the panic. We need this, and I don't want to deal with the later
So
type
no
of
more.
decision.
So no more Janikowski in the first round. So no more
I don't think
Stephen.
so. No,
Okay.
no more Roberto Aguayo in the it was the second round. Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
Okay. Good.
All right. That was Ben's last question. I got one more question, and both of you guys can answer this one too.
Oh,
This is
geez.
a
I don't like being put in the same bill as Joe here, but
All
okay.
right. Well, you don't
Here we
have to
go.
be an
No,
NFL
I
draft
will.
expert to answer
Okay.
this question. So
Okay.
there's 16 guys getting invited to the draft in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Which of them is going to show up in the most drip?
Oh
I'll read the list if you need to know the name so you
gosh.
don't say someone that's not supposed to be there. Who's going to be dressed the best? So
Oh,
it's
jeez.
between David Bailey, Ruben Bain, Mansour Delane, Caleb
Hmm.
Downs, Keldrick Falk, Colton Hood, Makai Lemon, Jeremiah Love, Francis Mauigoa, Caden McDonald, Caden Proctor, Arvell Reese, Ty Simpson, Sonny Styles, Carnell Tate, and Jordan Tyson. Those are the guys that are going to be invited to the
I,
draft. Who's going to be up there with the commissioner looking
I
the most heat?
well, see this thing. I don't know any of these guys. Like I don't know how they are. Okay. Well, I'm gonna show a guess here. Okay, this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna say Francis Manuel. I can never say his name. Can you say his name for me, Josh? Because I can't
Maui
say his
Noah?
name. Yeah, I'm gonna say him. You know why? Because he's a big dude, and big guys always come with some really great. They usually have a nice jacket. They got some. I love the guys that come in, especially like if it's a guy that has, they love bringing their culture into it. So they open the jacket up. They got all the stuff inside. So I don't want to say a Buckeye because I feel like that's just being very biased. I'm going to say either him or another O lineman, but I'm going to put it with him because at least
The O
I chose a
lineman
guy.
coming in. Okay.
Yeah, I feel like O linemen's good. They're a little underrated, man, and no one talks about them. But because I think too many of these guys, these skill guys, they wear such tight pants and like I gotta have some flow, man. You gotta have some flow for everything.
Yeah, I'm going Makai Lemon. I don't know if it's gonna be
Oh,
like good drip, but I think it's gonna be interesting whatever he does. He was at the combine answering questions, and he did that weird like stare thing into the crowd where his eyes are going up and down, and like everyone was
That was
saying his
weird.
like he was acting a little bit weird at the combine. So I'm gonna say he's gonna do something crazy with his outfit. I don't know exactly what that would be, but maybe he just seems like an interesting guy. So we'll see what he does.
I mean,
Yeah.
I wanted to say Ty Simpson because I feel like Ty Simpson would come in with like a hat on or a cowboy hat or something, but maybe
That'd
not.
be fun.
I don't think
I
so
was
though.
leaning, the defensive backs and receivers tend to be the bigger divas, the ones that try the most hard here,
Yeah.
and whether it looks good or bad is always up for debate. But I was leaning one of the receivers. I was thinking, maybe it's not Carnell, but
No,
Jordan
Carnell's
Tyson or
too
Kai
quiet.
Lemon.
Carnell's way too quiet to have
That,
that
that's the other
crazy
thing
drip.
is I don't really hear him talk a whole lot.
No.
But Makai, yeah, the way he acted at the combine, I could see it being Tyson to a receiver. So yeah, I was leaning that direction. I was just wondering what you guys were leaning. But
Yeah,
yeah, just a fun question
that's
to
interesting.
end the discussion.
Yeah. I love it. Well, Joe, we do thank you for coming on. It's always a pleasure to make us realize how much we don't actually dive into things. But we know you have a crazy, an awesome job of like being able to just go through these guys and figure it out. So we really do appreciate you coming on and just helping us also learn. Like this is great for us because now I can prove Josh wrong and my mock draft will be right in the last one, and I can once again be the king of mock drafts. But no, we do say thank you. And Joe, let us know where can we find you? Where can we find your stuff so that people can look at actual real people that do this and not just us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always fun talking ball with you guys when we get around the draft. I'm at DiTullio Joe on Twitter. You can find me there on X as they call it now. My written works on the Game House, and then started a YouTube channel called the Draft House for all things NFL draft. So that's been getting going this cycle, and it's been a lot of fun to do.
Mm, awesome. I know, Josh, we always have a good time doing these draft stuff. But yeah, so that is gonna be the episode for this week. But I can tell you, Josh, we will be having our last mock draft, I believe, next week. Correct, Josh?
Next week, yeah, we
Yeah.
wanted to get the last few details that we needed to from
Yeah.
Joe to maybe answer some of our
Yes.
questions and help guide some of our picks. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
unleash our mock 3.0 next week.
Yes. It'll be out next week. We're really
Next week,
excited to
draft
drop that.
week, right
Yes,
before.
draft week. It's gonna be exciting. We're definitely excited. Also, want to just say that if you've loved listening to this episode on YouTube and you've loved watching it, click that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and also leave down the comments below. Two things you're gonna leave. One, who's gonna have the most drip, like Josh said. Who's gonna and you can even throw someone in there that's just gonna be on screen because they're not at the draft. We could do that as well. That's fine. And the second question is who do you believe is going to go in the top five? Give us your top five picks in a row. Tell us who you think. Dad, no, it can't be all high state guys. I know that's what you think, but it's not going to happen, Dad. I'm sorry. But anyways, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you love listening on Apple Podcasts, in iTunes and everywhere else, half that is iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those different places, go ahead and let us know down as well in the comments. And once again, we want to thank you. And until next time, we'll see ya.